Right.
Hello. Hey, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our second webinar in this series, OSINT in Flow. As always, we're going to take a little bit of time just to let people join. Got a lot of people signed up today, so we will just give people to probably 5 past until we start kicking things off properly. And also making sure everyone can see the stream and making sure those things happen nicely. We will have the chat running today, so you should be able to see that on the side of the stream or below the stream, and you can ask questions along the way. I think that the way in which this works is we can't respond to those directly, but what we can do is we can incorporate those into the webinar today. So that's the plan, and looking forward to having everyone on there. We've got confirmation as well from our behind the scenes team that the live is working, so that's good because we've done it slightly differently than before. So yeah, that's great. If you are having any issues at all with the stream, if you can't hear us, you can't see us, let us know in that chat, and we'll start to see if we can do anything about it. But I think it should be working quite nicely. So yeah, we started slightly early just because of technical anxiety on my side for the first time doing this on LinkedIn, but we'll be kicking off in a few minutes, so feel free to grab yourself a drink whilst we do that. In terms of our webinar today, it's an exciting one because we are going to be delving a little bit deeper into topics we brought up on the first webinar around transparency in investigations, how to sort of have that provenance with your evidence as you go through collating and collecting all the great stuff that the world of OSINT brings. But we're also going to be getting a bit more hands-on with our tool, the OSINT Investigator tool. So that's going to be really cool to see that in action. And that will be led by Dave, who's Altia's head of OSINT there. Stan is also joining us as well. We'll do proper introductions shortly when we get kicked off properly, but it's always great to have Stan on. Stan helps with a wide range of things here at Altia, including our financial investigation software, strategic partnerships, but also the OSINT piece as well. We took on a lot of the feedback as well from the last session, so we are striving to increase the interactivity. Today will be first time we're running this as a live event, so it'd be great to hear your feedback at the end of the day of how this has worked, how it's been joining the event. Hopefully it's been a little bit easier than last time, and also we can take questions throughout the webinar through the chat, and we'll get kicked off in a few minutes on that. If you're just joining us, we will be starting shortly in a few minutes, and yeah, we're just making sure that everyone can join us properly, and the actual session will be digging into a few areas, so we'll start to just run through that briefly. We're going to start with a brief recap because although we have a lot of attendees today coming back from the previous session, we've also got a wide range of new people as well joining. So we're going to run through some of the key principles that came out. One of the main areas or the main few areas that came up last time around OSINT, and this came mainly driven from the audience, was transparency and how that can build credibility in your investigations. So we're going to really focus on parts of the product today that help you do that. So if you are an investigator, how can you actually show in your workings, in your evidence building, that transparency of where everything has come from, and then also moving that into the actual area properly. We're then going to look at ethics as well. This is quite an interesting one because it came up a lot last time with the OSINT. We've got people joining from the UK, we've got people joining from America, we've got people joining from Canada, and also other parts of the globe as well. So do let us know on the chat as well where you're joining in from, because it can help us to tailor a little bit of what that is and how to do that sort of ethical discussion as well. So yeah, I think in a couple of minutes we'll get started because we've got people on here now and we're ready to sort of kick things off. Please make sure to ask questions along the way, and yeah, let us know how you're getting on. But yeah, let's start with introductions. Thank thanks everyone for joining. I'm Toby Langston. I look after sales and customer success across North America. But I've also started to put together this series of webinars. It's focused on bringing together the community of OSINTers, for want of a better term. And joined with me today is Dave, Sampson, and Stan. But I'm going to start with an apology to Dave, because last time I introduced him incorrectly as the OSINT expert, which I quickly learned was not the correct term. So I've been having a think about what we can rebrand Dave as, and I feel like as we move into Christmas, maybe you could be the OSINT elf, Dave. I don't know how you feel about that.
Couple of challenges on that one. Expert, as we covered last time, is just a really little technical area, but actually my wife's name is Elfman. Known as Elf.
And I didn't know that, I promise.
Yeah. So that's a no as well. Keep working.
But yeah, Dave, thank you for joining us again, and we're really looking forward to you running us through the demo sections of this today. But maybe for the benefit of those on the call, let us know about your background and where you came from, etc.
Yeah, very much. Cheers, Toby. Ex-law enforcement in the United Kingdom. Worked very much as a detective in the world of fraud, financial, digital forensics, and then moved into the open source and laterally the cyber investigation world. But throughout an investigator, which is where I've got that core belief of that robustness of the evidence. I exited law enforcement approximately 6 years ago now. I know you don't have to put in the chat, I don't look old enough. And I've then moved into the private sector, developing open source strategies, capabilities, and with Altia, a product. And hopefully we can give you a good little look at little elements of it. It's still quite a light tease because of the topic areas we're going to choose, but it's an introduction to the product, but with a slant that will tell you how you can do things in the best possible way.
Cheers, Dave. Thank you very much. And yeah, we'll dig into all of that in more detail throughout the webinar today as well. And Stan, thanks for joining us again. Stan's a bit of a trooper for us this week. He's moved house, which is really exciting. But I think he's currently standing on the roof, streaming off his mobile phone or something like that. How's it going, Stan, for you?
You can tell me. You can tell me whether you can hear me, whether you can see me, or whether I'm frozen. I've got the wife next to me, so hopefully that's where. Well, I don't know. You tell me, Toby.
No, it's all good. We can hear you fine. We'll let you know at any point if we lose you. But yeah, Stan's going to be supporting me today. We're going to be asking Dave questions and leading through the conversation. And to kick things off, we've sort of recapped the last session and about finding and defining those principles of OSINT. And we spoke around, what OSINT was and how to bring it into the discussion. And I've mentioned it on the sort of preamble to this call, Dave, but the thing that came up was around having a transparent process, using that to build credibility in your evidence. And you've always mentioned that, credible evidence is transparent evidence. So maybe to kick things off with a question to you, Dave, is just around how investigators can actually make their work traceable in practice and transparent in practice.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And the key answer is pretty much having a robust process. And that doesn't mean product per se. Yes, we're going to show a product, that's our product, but you've got to have a process of how you do things. A little bit that people forget, because you get a bit of information, you get excited and you run away and start looking. You go off to the internet. But it's about making sure you're in that lovely little safe environment, that you have a process in place to do that capture of the evidence. And then when you capture that evidence, what do you do with it? How do you handle it? How do you store it? Who do you allow access to it? You might bring in something that is purely a singular bit of open source information, but if you bundle that all together, if I go out and I find everything I can about Stan, you get the whole picture of his life, or potentially the whole picture of his life. So it's a powerful beast, as we've spoken about before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you lead on to something that comes up across all levels as well, I find, of investigators, which is almost like a level of paranoia of starting that investigation, building up all this intelligence, this evidence, and getting to a point where you're like, oh crap, have I actually where have I put this? Where have I got this? How can I now formulate this? And is it too late to retrace those steps? And you mentioned around having a robust process. And I guess there are two parts of my question, which is first one is, where do you see that responsibility lying? Is that with the investigator? Is with the organization? Is it with others? And then also just advice around actually being the change and bringing that process in if it's not currently there in certain teams' practices.
No, it's a good point. And the answer is an easy one because it's both. You've got to have that personal responsibility. How am I going to do this? These are the rules. I have to make sure I stay within the law. I make sure everything I do is proportionate and necessary. And then you've got it also as an organizational point of view. You on your own cannot store all that data. You have to have that organizational responsibility and process. This is how we got the data. This is how we're going to store the data. This is how we handle the data. So it's quite key in the whole process, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to do my best today to lead you into areas of what we want to show everyone on the webinar, but without it being too obvious. But I think a good place to start, unless you want to do something different, Dave, which is always fun. But I think maybe if we start with that, I want to call it the basic side of what we have, which is that evidencing, showing that trail, having that I am confident to stand up in court audit trail and present this case within the capture and reporting functions that we have. Do you think that's maybe a good place to kick things off?
It is. And when I read the brief that we're preparing, I thought, oh, it's a bit dry, but it's important because you can go off and you can be wonderful and you can go and find everything, but you store it in a little folder on your desktop with no idea where you got it from, no idea how long or when you've got it, what uses it, how can you use it, how can you have that confidence to rely on it. I'll start though by a little bit of a tease because I like a tease. It's better than just going in, here is our product, here's how we capture something, this is the process behind it and what you get. If I'm all right, I'll share my screen there.
See, that should be
a couple of seconds. Let me know when we're up there, please, Toby.
Yeah, I'm just going to add you to this, add you in, and it should come through for everyone now.
So what we're seeing here, everyone, is my desktop. We're seeing Altia HQ product. I'm sat within an investigation. If anybody's got any good eyes and they look around the screen, they'll see there's an awful lot of our products there, which is great. And then alongside that, we've also got our new product, our dedicated OSINT Investigator product. We're going to probably touch lightly upon it this time, but we'll delve in it later in later webinars and things of that nature. But the elements I'm going to show that underpin the data are the same elements that we utilize in this product to underpin the data as well. So that's just given that little tease insight. If I drop back across to what is a view of our core investigation product, this is the best case management product you can get. It is Altia's sort of number one vehicle for running a whole investigation from start to finish. And I'm not going to take you through that because that's a session plus in itself. So I'm just going to show you how we've curated the means of doing the open source investigation. I'll just refresh because we've been chatting so long. I may have logged out, which would be quite awkward. I'll have to log back in. Thankfully, I haven't. So that we can do the open source straight from the same investigation. We are in a cloud environment. We use Microsoft Azure. So there's your first step back. How do I know that I can go on the internet with confidence that nobody knows it's me and nobody can knows it's my organization? So we curate that. It could be the straightforward, we put it into the Microsoft Azure cloud, and then you've got the benefit of having an extra VPN wrapped around it, or whatever next level of security you need stepped up. And that's all part of the discussion of the onboarding. But that gets you to this point on the platform. Once you're here, we have a little bit within our case management to start an open source investigation. And what does that mean? It means it sets a time parameter. I've now started doing my open source investigation. If you're in an organization that bills for the work that you do, you've got that start point. If you're in an organization where you may have to write an evidential statement, you can say at this moment exactly, I've started my session. I will take you back when I get to that and give you that guide as well. what this does, and I'm going to give you the very brief journey, it enables two elements that we have. Open source extension here that allows us to capture the data, and our sidebar, which enables us to bring in other functionality to find that data. And we're going to look lightly at this time. Let's say we've utilized that functionality from the sidebar and we've got to a web page. Because we're in North America, I tried to choose a web page that's pretty much America, Canada, right in the middle of the country. So I'm off in the little snowy world of North Dakota. So we've got to this page, and on the way to this page, we might have stepped through a whole lot of a number of pages. I'll just use the BBC here in the United Kingdom to prove the point when I jump through loads of different elements, and I've been to all these pages, but eventually end up at this page where we want to be. Here, I can come and we can rely upon our extension. You can see I've got a visual audit trail here for me doing it of where we are going. But I can then take various elements from this page. I can take a snapshot, that's singular page capture of what you see on the screen. I can capture the full page, a big scrolling page, if it's maybe social media or some of the news channels. I can record a content, so if there's a video on the page or there's moving content, I can do that. We can also redact the page, and if we've got time, I'll loop around and show you the redaction later. It allows us to take the live web page, filter it down to the content we want, and then take that snapshot. Snapshot's easy. Little click of the button, second click after you've read the little notice telling you you may need to refresh, add my notes about the page that I'm going to capture, and then capture the page. That, on the surface, is all we have to do. And that's all we want an investigator to do. We want an investigator to do investigating. We don't want them to do any process, but we're going to jump back from this and look at the data of what we've captured and how we've captured it to show you how that whole process works. So I'll just complete that for now and jump back into the session. And whilst that loads up and refreshes, I'll just check to see if there's anything from Stan or Toby they want to add at this point.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in real quick, Dave, because actually one of the first questions that's come through on the chat is bang on this point, and it's from Sarah. So thanks, Sarah, for asking that away. Around very interested to see our approach into archiving and handling of what's collected. So we've actually inadvertently we've started in the exact right place, because it is all about creating that solid foundation. And you mentioned, Dave, it's somewhat boring, but this is the boring part that saves your skin and makes you less nervous when you're actually presenting this. And a big part of this webinar series is around OSINT, but I think the differentiating factor of where Altia come into things is we deal with serious and organized crime, we deal with the evidence element of it, and that admissibility in courts. And Stan, I know you've had a lot of experience in the courts with Altia products, not necessarily the OSINT side, but it'd be good to hear maybe your input on that as well, if your connection's still going.
Well, yeah, it's in court and explain how you got to the stage that I think with this particular product that Dave is showing you, what would be really good to see is an example of what would I as an investigator be able to see when I present to court. Sure that what I did is actually traceable, because what we don't want to happen is to ask me, how did you get to this? I don't know, because that would immediately make my case look very bad.
Yeah, no, very much good point, Stan. And the bit around that is I showed, I quickly got to a page. Yes, there's that whole level of investigation. And how do you get to page? How do you find the content that's relevant to you? And then when I showed the extension here, I've used it quite quickly. We can have I've closed it now, but we can dwell on how we got there. But then the data comes into our system. One of the magic things of our system is it comes exactly into the point where we'd bring any other bit of data. So if I delve into the data here, we've got that little page that I've captured there and some that I made earlier, as you do. So that make sure you've got a nice, robust content when you're talking about it. So you can see that we represent every item that we capture in a certain way. We have a thumbnail of it. We give it a unique reference number. So straight away, we're thinking, how do I store that? How's that kept in a database? How can I call upon that? We break it down into types. It's a document. It's an OSINT snapshot, so it gives you that guide to it. And we call it by the full URL of the title, which is really important. And then we've got that exact time and date of when it was captured, which is great. I'll dig into it, and then I'll be able to show some more elements that are really key and that pick up on the question that was asked. Again, you've got a little bit more information here about what we did, where we went. And my notes, when I wasn't on camera, I did a little bit more typing. I'm sure you just didn't want to sit there and watch me type. And then we've got the image itself. So we've got that PNG of it. And it's not just the PNG image we've got, that's just that picture image. We capture more, but from an investigation point of view, picking up on Stan's point there, this is the page I've captured. This is what's relevant. This is what's important to me. And this is what I want to take through that content and present into court. So how can I do that with confidence? We do that by, we create the parent snapshot. So if I go to the parent snapshot of this item, we will see what we actually captured in addition to that. So you can see again, I've got that name of the investigation it's linked to, the time when I captured it this afternoon, and the 2 items that we bring in as part of it. So not only do we capture the image of the page, as we've seen there, that page, we also capture the raw HTML of the page. We are mindful of malicious code and things of that nature, so we always store it as a text document and allow you to be able to download it and view it. And likewise with the PNG that we've already seen, you can download that and view that. So if you want to deal with it as a single item, just share that one item, maybe as an intelligence point of view, you can take it from there. But if you want to keep it in our case management, we have a full workflow that takes it from this point through to producing it into a whole bundle that you can take into the criminal justice system or something of that nature. Again, covering the audit of it, something I get but I don't get, doing a hash of an image. So we've captured this, and we do this for every single thing that we bring into Altia Insight. We do a hash. So at that moment in time, we do a mathematical algorithm. When I say we do, it's not me, Toby, or Stan. It's all done back end by Windows. But it does this calculation. And later on, if someone produces that images back to us, we can take them both, do a comparison, and see if any changes have been made to them digitally, which is key, which is quite important. I always use the story. I go and search a house. I always say, Stan, we search Toby's house. We seize a file of paperwork. I wouldn't start drawing notes on this. Oh, we've got Toby here. This is really good evidence. So it's that preservation of the evidence. So that's really important to it. How did I get to that web page earlier? We keep the logs of everything I did. We don't capture every page. We don't want all that data because then that creates us a disclosure issue. All the other pages I travel through to get there is not relevant. So you can see I logged into the system. I went off searching for an area in North America on the Canada border. I got a little bit bored, so I read the news. As I was on that journey, then I got back to where I wanted to be, and I captured that page. So we've got that lovely trail. Anybody from a defense point of view could follow that and see where we get with that. And I think I'll pause there, Toby, because I think we've got some questions popping up in the chat. Did you hear me there, Toby? We might have some questions in the
Sorry,
chat.
yeah, no, sorry about that. I was on mute. Apologies. There we are. Yes, I think the first question asked by Sarah, I think we've answered that quite nicely. And there's obviously a lot more detail we can go into that and the evidencing and the journey, but I think this is the first part of the system we wanted to kind of get through. We have other questions around individual accounts for students, for research. We do offer all different types of things. There should be a QR code coming up occasionally throughout the webinar. So when you see that, if you take a scan, you can just give us a couple of very straightforward details and we can reach out to you with some sort of more information on those areas. That's just come up now. There we go. Brilliant, like magic. But Dave, I think, obviously today we don't have time to show everyone everything, but we should maybe move on to other parts of the system because this is just that backbone sort of chugging away to make sure everything is evidence. But there's a lot in the OSINT world around getting information and building out cases and trying to do deep dives, whether we're a close protection unit, whether we are looking into corporate due diligence, whether we're actually doing a fraud investigation, whether we're looking at a whole network of drug traffickers. There's so many use cases for OSINT. What can this tool, or what can tools that are connected to do to help build up an evidential picture?
Well, as you can see, and as we know of OSINT now, there's no borders. There's nothing that stops us from being able to go anywhere. I can do an investigation sat in my house in the northeast of England in Trinidad and Tobago as much as I could do it locally. And to be honest, it's sometimes easier when you do it in Trinidad and Tobago. So it takes us from where we are now and being able to want to geolocate to an area and then get to an area and get that general understanding of what is happening in that area. Say I was taking a team of investigators to an area. I want to know what's there. I want to know what my threat and risks are. But I also want to know what may not be connected to the people involved with my investigation, so I can start capturing that, harnessing that, and bring that into the investigation. I think that's pretty much the key bits around that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the point of there not being borders is one that comes up a lot now as well. And I think that it ties in both sides, because there's no borders on our side, but there's also no borders on the criminal side as well. So I think actually OSINT is helping bring us onto I won't ever say a level playing field, because we know that's not true, but it is allowing us to actually get into that area a little bit better. And, we can piece up a picture of someone a lot quicker and a lot easier now with the tools that we've got. In terms of moving, I guess, the demo on, Dave, what do you think would be a good place to move to next, to show people who maybe haven't seen our solution before, but maybe haven't seen many other OSINT solutions as well?
Yeah, I think showing the overall that data, how we keep that data. And again, it's coming back to the dry area. I mean, we all want to jump to the maps and do a bit of geolocating and dropping points on and things of that nature and doing that searching. But I think because we're going to have a few of these sessions, it's good to cover this as well. And again, it's an element within our product. It's really dry, but this is where within our inside product, where we create an investigation. All right, you've got me data, you've stored me data. What are you going to do with it? Well, our cases function in a way that we can lock them down. We can lock them down from a security level point of view. We can have it open. Anybody can come and have a look. We can have it department. You've got to be working in that department, or it's actually you've got to be assigned to this investigation. So straight away that locks the data down nice and securely. We can then set a data governance level. So depending on what kind of investigation, it sets a level to that data. And then we can say, all right, we'll then assign it to a department. But then we can take me, and we can set what I can do. We can see where my restriction level is. What can I do? Can I close a case? So straight away, we took this data and put it into a repository where everybody can access. But then what we're doing on top, we're layering in the security. We're saying, that's great, but you can't get to it because you're not working on this investigation. You can get to it because you're the senior investigator, so we'll allow you to see it. But we really structure it to make that robust, secure. And it sits alongside the resilience of the data. This data we've stored admissible, but then we protect it. This will only be used for this purpose that we've got it. And that gives you that overall confidence. So when Stan was saying he goes into court and he stands in that witness box, and for anybody that's been there, it's a challenge, but it gives you that confidence in what you've got, and you can stand a bit taller and make your argument because you know everything that sits behind protects that what you've captured of that singular page there. And it's that sort of area, Toby, that's really key. That really is the driver to start the process. But then we build on top of it from that. We're not just creating a repository to store a single web page. We want to bring in multiple web pages. We want to examine all those web pages, but we want them to sit alongside other data at the same time so we can see everything together and get that much fuller picture.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think you're right to talk around this, the dry side of things, because actually what I hear as challenges when I'm speaking with people who are looking to improve, let's say, or enhance their OSINT investigation processes, is normally one of this, which is we've got loads of different options out there to find information, whether that would just be using basic search engines or finding data or everything in between. But what we end up doing is having a random repository, a combination of saved files and things on SharePoint and, saved links and tabs and all of this, which again doesn't leave you set up for success when actually you find what you're looking for. And I think what we've built into this is around standardizing a workflow, which is never going to sound super exciting, but actually is what you need, is that standardized workflow where each time you come to do an investigation, you start your session. That session opens, we start to build evidence, we start to go on that journey and give you the guide rails to actually be able to succeed with the evidence there. In terms of that sort of workflow element, you've built this based on your experience, Dave, with that process of doing OSINT investigations. I mean, off the sort of top of your head, would you be able to sort of bring in maybe some examples? You don't have to show us them, but talk us through them of how those examples sort of filled into the process which you built into the system, if that makes sense as a question.
Yeah, very much. And I'll almost step it back again. I know I do this to you every time, but it's about that plan. I can't emphasize that plan that much. What are you going to do? Why are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? Are you equipped? Are you capable? Everybody can go and search. We can all go and do a Google search, but there's a skill level that takes it beyond there. There's a world of training opportunities out there. Part of the training we do, we'll train you into, here's our product, here's how to use it. That's quite an obvious thing to do. But we'll also add in the, what do you know already? What is your skill level? We can bespoke a course to help you in that training, or we've got a sort of off-the-shelf 4-day open source course that will take it from, here is a bit of information, how can you follow that through on that journey? A lovely example, and I think I mentioned it last time as well. There's a gentleman working for a distribution company, and he was borrowing, I think that's the polite way of saying stealing, a world of Clinique products, makeup products from his workplace. And ultimately, through open source, I caught him because of his reflection in an eBay transaction on the top of the silver bottle. And it's lovely. It's nothing clever on my part. It's just being tenacious, keep digging, keep looking, the magical thing is you may go through your whole search parameter and find all the relevant information to the person involved, but you might not find what you need for that case. So you have to be patient. And that's where we quite often fall down. We're like, nope, nothing there, move on. Whereas if you're patient and wait, and one of the key things we're working on is the ability to monitor a web page, to monitor any page. So if there's any content that comes onto there that's really key to you, we can capture it. We can bring that in. And then we haven't got time to run through that now in detail and show you that in the demo, but that's a really interesting element where, yes, you've done your first search, you've done I call it the collection plan, and you've got everything at that moment in time, but that's like a quick service of your car. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to be found, and it's having that patience and resilience to keep revisiting and find that content.
It's a really interesting point that you bring up, and I think we can definitely delve into, I mean, how we set up these searches on web pages and sort of monitor them, etc. I wanted to talk around a couple of things. So we've got about 10 minutes left on our webinar. It'd be good to talk around 2 points. I wanted to start with maybe a myth, and it's a genuine question. I don't really know the answer to, Dave, so I'm interested to put it to you on the webinar around OSINT. And I think there's a misconception potentially that it is a very solitary pursuit. OSINT is done by a single person for a single investigation, kind of hood up in the dark, on the computer, delving into the dark web, etc. But my question is, how collaborative is OSINT? Could it be more collaborative, or what are your viewpoints from your experience in sort of being in this world?
It's whenever you see a picture of anything to do with open source investigation, you're seeing the image of that person in the hooded top. I think, and hopefully that's gone, as mentioned before, the Bellingcats of the world, another great group, the OSINT Industries, have really driven the profile of open source investigation up. And now it's sometimes gone too far a little bit. I think we've got a lot of armchair investigators who think, oh, I've got a phone, I can do the investigation myself. So I get that, but we want that collaboration. We haven't, let's say we have an incident, we have a kidnapping. So we've got a crime in progress. That crime's fluid. It's going to progress. It may progress over days. The people that you bring in initially and the nature and the volume of the data that's now available, you need them multiple elements to search that data. Well, the nature of what you can do with our Altia insight is you can have multiple users all working on the same case. You can create that structure. The team leader, these 6 other members of the team who are all tasked in certain areas. You do the social media, you do the CCTV, you look at the maritime and the airplane information, and then they can curate all their findings of the relevant data in one pot instead of a lot of capturing. A key thing as well is organizationally. Something happens now, and a number of investigators might start searching, and they all might find something, but within the organization, they may not know that they found content. So there's that ability to match the data as it's saved into a system, to bring connections and links together, which we have a very good link analysis in there that will bring out those key points. That will say, actually, you who've been working on the investigation for a day need to speak to this person who's been working on this investigation for 6 months because you're looking at the same content, and that's key. And it's been able to do that.
Yeah, I think you bring up a litany of really interesting points there, as always. But it started making me. I can't really say the name of the documentary because it's rude. But it was the one. Don't mess with cats is how I'll say it, but with the F word instead of the mess. But that's an incredible documentary to anyone who hasn't seen it. Where I won't spoil it, but I think the point that you made there around almost having armchair investigators and having the likes of anyone and everyone utilizing the world of OSINT, but the collaboration element is actually when it becomes incredibly powerful, because you can have that. Now that's quite a wide-reaching example, but I think if you boil this back down into your team, whether you're in a law enforcement environment, whether you work for a private bank, whether you're anywhere in between, that is kind of, I still think when I speak with people, that I still think there is that confinement of it and that closed offness of it, and it's like, well, this is my OSINT investigation, this is how I'm doing it. But actually there are so many elements to OSINT now, and I think the success we've seen with these webinars is the fact that it's anyone and everyone in that OSINT world. We have different people from different areas coming together and sharing ideas, even in this space. And it's just about taking away from a session like this and bringing that practice back into your team, even if it's a smaller team, because that collaboration can really lead to great results. I also see you brought up something a bit more visual on here, Dave. Is this maybe a nice thing to sort of just touch on lightly as maybe a final demo point, perhaps?
Yeah, it was going to be probably our next webinar as it progresses. We have fully embedded the capability that we've shown you within our Altia Insights. That's that case management with the open source capability, but we want to bring it to that more standalone geolocation, find the content in an area. So it's a recent addition to our little family of products. We have this ability to take a mapped location anywhere and then bring in, I think we've got 70 plus feeds of data. So I'll just run, and this is one I'm just started looking at recently around the lovely world of vaping in the Lincolnshire area. And this allows us to bring in data that's out there. And I only ran this once as a one-off day session. So if we can make this live and proactive, we can bring in data from social media through to public cameras, the Internet of Things. moving on with vulnerabilities and networks and even event data to build up this profile and then match that in with our capture and investigation capability. It gives you a lovely broad view of this from which you can curate a report. We've got some lovely little AI things that we're going to bring at this safely, responsibly, securely, but we will bring them into this, and probably on the next webinar we'll have a good look into this product as well. I do believe, Toby, that you may have some more questions for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another question around, just get it up real quick, around can we easily convert this collection of data and evidence into a single document? What's the output, I guess, is another way of putting that, Dave, of what we've been showing people today.
If we go back to our originally case management, we got that bespoke to produce the United Kingdom criminal justice case file. We can swap in, swap out the American, the Canadian, the local requirement as needed. But it'll take a little bit of development work, but as needed, we can drop that in. Moving across here to our OSINT Investigator product, we can take out an item in a singular form. We can create a sharing link to pass it to anyone, or we can create a case bundle. And I can't show you. I'll be able to show you next time, but we're busy building an AI curation summary of the relevant content, and you can choose it, and it will produce that as a report. And then you can take as you want. Everything is a big bundle. We're not precious. We have a great case management system. But if you already have a case management system, whilst you're waiting to migrate to us, we will make it so the data will go into your case management, because it's about supporting investigators, and we have everything built in to do that. So it can come out in many ways and many forms. That quick single page or that bulk, here's all the data with all the integrity that goes with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to open a can of worms at the end of a webinar, but maybe that's a good thing to do, which is around, you mentioned the dreaded term AI there. And obviously it's banded around so much now, despite having been in existence a lot longer than people realize. But how do you see that coming into the court space, Dave, and having created information, perhaps utilizing AI, and then actually having to stand up and use that in court? What's your, I guess, opinion, or anything else you want to add to that? That might be a nice sort of tail ender. Just before you answer that, I can see you've wrote it up. If anyone does have any other questions they want to ask, now is the best time to do it in the chat, because if we get them too late, then we might not see them. So please ask them away whilst we answer this, and we'll look to tail things off shortly. Dave, sorry, over to you.
Everybody likes AI. Everybody likes the term AI. What is it? What does it mean? Could we all explain it to a 6-year-old? I think that's a challenge. Where do we think it's, because it has been around, I think it goes back a ridiculous amount of time, but it's been running fast in the last 5 years, and it just gets faster. So it's how you use it. We are an enterprise level company who produce robust, solid, I don't want to get boring again, enterprise level software. So we have to make sure it's secure, robust. A little bit when we did the evidential trail at the start, we need to do the same for AI. How can we use it? How can we use it safely? And if I, as the human, I want to do this input, I want to say, capture this data, I want AI potentially in that middle bit to produce a product. And then I want me as the human to review that product, validate that content, and be satisfied with it. Because it's me. The AI isn't going to be Stan in the witness box. It's going to be me. It's going to be Stan. And we need that confidence around that.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. It is a can of worms, and I think it's a little bit crass, a little bit tongue in cheek, but I did hear it recently, which was quite an interesting retort, I guess, is around spell check and things. That kind of software that's built on is not AI, but it's under that umbrella of it. And it's like taking a witness statement that you've written out into court, and then it's like, oh, do you use a spell checker for this? How do you know that would be seen as a silly thing to bring up in court? But actually, the way in which most AI is incorporated into responsible, like I say, enterprise grade due diligence evidence is very different. But it is something to be cautious of, and I think something to be responsible on as well. So it's an interesting point. I think we've split the crowd in the chat with that, and we always will. It's a great point of contention, but I think it's also one of those where it's still a new and developing area. But there are many cases where it's been fine and cases where it haven't. So yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. But yeah, I think we'll move on to sort of some closing thoughts. If there are any other questions, then do let us know. But what we'll be doing is kind of piecemeal showing different elements to our system, and hopefully also other systems out there as well. So, I'm sure there's a lot of you on here today who are also involved in your own sort of tools and creations and investigations, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see that. I'm going to might be able to override things. If you scan this at any point, any questions, you want to see a full demo of this, if you want to share your own stuff with us as well for future webinars, then you can do that. Anything like that QR code will take you to a page where we can then get in touch with you. So please scan that in the last minute or two here. But yeah, I think for me today, it's been interesting, Dave, to see some of that and hear your thoughts on it. I think we've tackled two really sort of key areas, but the main one for me is around that robustness, that boring side of your process first, and getting the basics right. Because if you get the basics right to begin with, then you can go off and have the fun with all the other tools that we're going to show people and go into. Is there anything you want to sort of add to, Dave, if people are looking for maybe some advice, some intel on how to do better OSINT, anywhere you can point them towards, or just anything you want to finish off on today?
Go play, go home, make sure you're safe, make sure you're secure, go search, practice on yourself, try and see what you can identify about yourself. Say Stan, have a look for Stan, see what you can find about Stan. Speed the information back and we'll verify it for you. It'll be a pleasure, Stan. But we covered what is, I would say, the base. If this was a training course, this would be morning one. This is how you do it. This is the setup. We want to get into how do you take a photograph and geolocate it. We want to get into how can we find locations in bulk and map them. That's the interesting bits, and we'll get to that. It'll be good. Brilliant.
Stan, anything else you wanted to add? I know you've had some. Yeah, I think you did disappear there for a moment into the ether. So I appreciate you sticking with us on this. But yeah, appreciate you being on the call.
Okay. It's been
we've lost him.
Really, it's been really interesting to see it. I'm always interested by insights on OSINT.
Brilliant. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We will be running the next one before. Oh, I think we got Stan's a few minutes ago. We'll be running more of these soon to come. So keep an eye out on our page. If you haven't followed us on LinkedIn, then do so, because that's where these will be running off from. And yeah, look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers all.